Well, good morning. Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Donald Hovis with the Chicora Rotary Club in Myrtle Beach, and welcome to Conversations with Rotary Action People for Monday, July 20th. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. We're excited to have today as our speaker the lovely Anne Walker, who is the Executive Director of the Alston Wilkes Society. She is a past president of the Columbia Rotary Club, a past district governor in our Rotary district. She's a major donor. Her list on DACDB of all of her accomplishments in Rotary is very long. So, Anne, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing wonderful. We hope you are.
I am. Glad to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We'll get to you in just one moment. Introducing the Conversations with Rotary Action People team. Our public image chair for our Rotary district, and you might see our CWRAP mascot there. That is Miss Mary Gask with the 5 Points Rotary Club in Columbia. Good morning, Mary, and thank you for what you do. And also behind the scenes for us, running the stream, our district communications officer from the Somerville Evening Rotary Club, Mr. Terry Moore. Got a lot of folks on here this morning. How about you go to the chat box and tell us your Rotary Club and where you're watching from today. And also, we're streaming this on the Rotary International District's Facebook page. If you're watching over there, good morning, hello. Comment below the stream on where you're watching from and your Rotary Club as well. I will kick off today with the vision statement of Rotary. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. So, Anne, first of all, I want you to tell us, what is the Alston Wilkes Society?
We are an agency that was founded in 1962 by Reverend Eli Alston Wilkes, and he named the agency the South Carolina Therapeutic Association. He died about a year and a half after he started it, and the volunteers that were left renamed it the Alston Wilkes Society. And Don, I know that I've sent you some questions. Those that know me know that I could talk forever about society, but I will stop so that you can ask some of the obvious questions, and we'll go from there.
I appreciate that, Ann, and yes, thank you for sending those over. So who was Reverend Eli Alston Wilkes?
He was a Methodist minister, and you know, in the Southern pronunciation, a lot of people spell his name A-U-S-T-I-N, but it's Reverend Eli Alston, A-L-S-T-O-N Wilkes, and he was a Methodist minister. And he became interested. He visited the prisons like a lot of ministers do, and he, at the state prisons in particular, at that time, back in 1962, and he was had a heart for helping folks get on the right path in life once they got out of prison. And so he went to the prisons to work with men in particular at that time.
So what are your program areas?
Well, we have 4 major program areas. We work with, our mission statement, first of all, is rebuilding lives for a safer community. I tell people all the time, if you get on an elevator and you want to know what your elevator talk is, our mission statement consists of about 6 words, including A. So rebuilding lives for a safer community. And our 4 major programs are, first of all, we work with folks coming out of federal prison in South Carolina and North Carolina. We have 3, what we call, they used to be called halfway houses. Now they're called RRCs, Residential Reentry Centers. And we have those located in Charleston, in Columbia, and in Florence, South Carolina, and also in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And we have people that come to us, they're transitioning from federal prison back into the community, and our job is to help them again to get on the right path. We want to help folks become law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. And so, and these facilities, by the way, they're under contract with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. They're competitive contracts. These contracts exist nationwide. We just simply do business in South Carolina and have that one facility in North Carolina as it relates to the residential reentry centers. I'm going to give you a highlight of the 4 programs, and then we'll come back if there are specific questions as it relates to those different programs. We also work, of course, as Reverend Eli Alston Wilkes started out, we have what we call our community service coordinators, and we have about 8 of those around the state, kind of strategically located, and they actually, again, go into the state prisons. They work with people that are coming out. They work with families. Our folks do everything. You might have heard, particularly with all that's going on in our world now, that anybody who works in a restaurant, they need to have what they call a Serve Safe certification. And those are folks that have been through some training to know how to properly and safely handle food. And so we provide that training across the state in a variety of different cities where we have our community service coordinators. We do budget training. We actually have a course on anger management. We get referrals from the local courts for people to go through anger management. I've often said if we could deal with everybody's anger in the world, we'd have a real different kind of world to live in. So we work with people coming out of federal prison, coming out of state prison. The third program we have is we also work with youth that are coming either from the Department of Juvenile Justice or that are coming from DSS. These are boys. Now, in our state and federal programs, we work with men and women and the families. In our youth program, we work just with really the most of the boys that come to us are, I would say, 15 to actually about 20 years old. And people say, well, a boy's not 20, but we have a lot of folks who may have a 20-year-old body of a quote man, but they surely are not there emotionally. So our particular facility is a high management group home for kids that have emotional issues, etc. The fourth program that we have is a program that we got involved with back in it's been almost 20 years now, back in about 1996. We work a lot with veterans in the state. And people say, well, why do you work with veterans if you're mostly an agency working with adult and youth offenders and former offenders and their families, et cetera? Well, we also work with a lot of veterans. Unfortunately, a lot of the veterans, particularly that are out on the street, that are living under bridges, et cetera, there is some connection to the criminal justice system. And usually it's related to alcohol and drugs or mental health issues. Those are a lot of our veteran issues. And so we opened the first facility in South Carolina specifically for formerly homeless veterans in 1996 in Columbia. We now also have a facility up in Greenville, South Carolina. In addition to that, we have a program called Supportive Services for Veterans and Their Families. And this is all under contract with the Veterans Administration. And so we provide what I call real money. You know, a lot of grants that exist in this world are grants where people will come together and they talk about various programs and how they want to form a program and how they want it to go forward. And by the time they get it all together, the money's run out. So I really prefer contracts over grants. However, in these grants with the supportive services for veterans and families, all of the money, except for us paying the staff that has to jump through all of the hoops to make sure that we indeed are working with eligible, qualified veterans, except for the monies that go for that, all the rest of the money literally goes out of the door to pay specifically for housing and for utilities. And interestingly enough, during this pandemic time, the Veterans Administration has actually provided additional funds that they simply voluntarily did that, not through any asking of any of those to provide those services nationwide. So those are our 4 major programs. And as you could tell, I could talk about it forever, so I'll stop and see what other questions you might have or other folks. I can tell you about success stories. I can tell you about anything you want to know about the Alston Wilkes Society.
Awesome. And we will get to those questions from the viewers. So if you do have a question for Anne, please post that in the chat box, and we will ask those to you here in just a few minutes. So let me see here. You talked about what services. All right, so we'll go to the questions from the viewers. Do you have an element of teaching personal financial management? One of my interests.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We actually have we do that in our residential reentry centers where we have budgeting classes, where we are, and the folks that we deal with all have to have a budget that we literally are looking at on a very regular basis with them. Obviously, initially there's a teaching going on. It's actually ongoing, but yes, our folks are, and they're required to have a savings account because the goal is that once they come to us, particularly in our residential reentry centers, is for them to move from that into their own housing. And in order to have that, obviously, we all know you have to be able to pay the rent, etc. So sometimes they're going back to live with family. And if not going back to live with family, even with that, they need to be bringing income into the house. And they need to also understand what budgeting is all about. It's amazing. You know, we literally, Donald, will deal. I've been with the agency for a number of years, and we literally have, I know in the time that I've been here as director, we've dealt with everybody from people with PhDs to college professors to bank presidents to legislators to Cy Young Award winner to people that don't have hardly any education and everything in between. As you well know, as most folks know, even though they may not think about it, when you start talking about the criminal justice system, you're not talking about just a certain segment of our society. I would venture to say that there are people on this phone call that know of someone who's had some contact with the criminal justice system. It might have been a teenager, it might have been a family member, it might have been a neighbor, it might have been a friend of a friend. But many people are involved, unfortunately, in a negative way with the criminal justice system. Obviously, we have the folks that run the prisons that we're grateful for. We have folks that and obviously all of our law enforcement that we're grateful for. And we all are in partnership together because we are all a part of that system, of the criminal justice system from A to Z.
Do you have any relationships with the Rotaract clubs in the prisons?
We don't at this point in time, but that would be a great idea for us to do. And I have to tell you that I was not aware that we had Rotaract clubs that were doing work in prisons. So if you can make me aware of that, I would love to know about that because we don't have any contact with them.
So maybe Susan asked that question. Susan, maybe if you know of any information, maybe get it to Mary or get it to Anne. That would be great.
One of the things, Donald, that we have to be very aware of, and people want to be volunteers with us, etc. In order to be a volunteer with Alston Wilkes Society, you have to go through fingerprint checks. You have to go through background checks. It's because, as you can well imagine, and I would say particularly with anybody, but we have to be very careful about young people interacting with folks that are in prisons and coming out of prisons for some obvious reasons.
Hello, Anne. This is Joel Collins. Can you hear me?
I can. Hey, Joel, how are you?
It's fine. It's nice to see you, and thank you for doing this. In regard to the Rotaract, the Lake Murray Irmo Club founded a Rotaract program at DJJ years ago. And
I am familiar with that, Joel. I apologize. I forgot about that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't know how they're doing right now. I get the impression that they have not been very active at all because they've reduced the population out there considerably in the last few years. But we had meetings and some activities, road cleanup, various things. And we got a little write-up, as I recall, in the Rotarian magazine for having the first Rotaract club ever behind bars.
Yeah, and thank you for reminding me of that, Joel, because I had forgotten about that program. And you're correct. I have not heard much about it lately, but that doesn't mean that it's not still going on.
I have one more question. Do you need clothing?
Go ahead.
Are you seeing men or women, either one, come with a handicap of not being able to go for a job? Jenny Barr told me one time that a young man to whom I had given some long sleeve shirts was able to get a job because he had tattoos on both arms, and that long sleeve shirt made him look a whole lot more presentable to a prospective employer. Are you in need of clothing?
We do get some clothing. We don't have a tremendous amount of storage, but when we have some folks that will bring us, and I don't mean to sound choosy, but if clothing is brought to us on hangers where it's been cleaned and we can make it available to the guys, and we deal with, particularly in our housing, we have a lot more men than we have women, and particularly with our veterans. So we do have some folks that bring some things to our veterans home. We don't have a tremendous amount of storage for that. And we also work in cooperation with cooperative ministries in the Columbia area. And so if someone has a lot of clothes that they want to donate, we suggest that they might, if they want to bring them specifically to us, if they're own hangers, and guys could look at them right then and find their size, and they can put them on and wear them. If it's things that are in bags that have to be laundered and ironed and that kind of thing, that makes it more difficult. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
And Joel, we appreciate you coming and asking that question. Out of respect for everyone on the call, please post future questions in the chat box only, please.
I will. Excuse me for not.
But Donald, I don't want to mess up your system, but it is nice seeing Joel. So hey, Joel.
I know. I wish everyone could come off mute and ask their questions, but then we would be here for quite a while. So
I understand.
Just out of respect for everybody's time,
Sure, absolutely.
So next couple questions I got coming at you here is, what is the timeline for follow-up once someone has been released from your program?
Well, again, it depends on what program they're coming through. Now, so of course, with the Veterans Program, that's ongoing because they're so tied into the Veterans Administration, as well as because we work very closely with the VA. And so we follow up. It is amazing. We have what I call formal and informal follow-up. We have a formal follow-up of a minimum of 6 months after they leave us. But it is amazing. For example, at our facility in Columbia, we have a back porch that the guys go out and sit on and just chat like anybody else would go out on their back deck or whatever. And we have a number of folks that have left our program that come back and they just still want to be around other veterans. One of the things that we've done in society, we somehow or another have some folks have come to the conclusion that the very best thing to do for all the homeless veterans is to eventually get them into their own housing. And what we're finding out, and I'm sure those of you on the call that are veterans, is that veterans like to be around other veterans. They don't necessarily want to live by themselves. They don't necessarily want to live in a congregate housing setting with a whole lot of people. But so we sometimes will connect veterans with veterans, and it may be 2 guys, say, living in a house or something. So, but our follow-up is not only is it, as I said, formal, but also we have people. We literally have folks that come back to us that we served years ago because they just want to maintain that connection. And that's with our veterans program. Now, with our other programs, again, it depends on the situation. When they leave us from our residential reentry centers, then they go on what we call home confinement. And depending on what their sentence was, they may be on home confinement for 6 months. Might be 3 months, might be a year. And those are people that are on, we actually have ankle bracelets on them so that we know where they are and we're keeping in close contact with them. We have people we call supervision specialists that work within our facilities, and they are constantly in touch with all of the folks that we deal with that are in our facilities.
Thank you for that. What is your and I believe it's Rita I can't pronounce the word, I'm sorry. Dr. Green.
Recidivism?
Yes. What's
that?
rate?
You said, what is our recidivism? again, it depends on the various programs, but the folks that come through our residential reentry centers and successfully complete that program, the numbers are really high. We're like at about 92% success rate, and those are the folks that we follow. Now, you have to understand the difference between what we're doing and someone who just simply gets out of prison and the doors are open and somebody picks them up at the gate and they're not on parole or they're not on anything like that or probation. Then those folks don't really have any follow-up. And so what we want in our society nationwide is that there's a transition and there's a program in place so that people can transition back. I'll give you an example. We had a guy, this was years ago, that had been in prison for a number of years, about 20 years. And he came to one of our, at that time we called them halfway houses, and he had the permission based on the program that he was in. He could like walk down to the local store, convenience store. I'm not even sure what we called it at that point. That was long, but anyway, he could walk down there. This guy walked out of the house, went down the steps, went to the corner, turned around and came back. And the staff said, what's going on? Why didn't you go to the convenience store? He said, I don't feel like that I have the right at this point in time to go beyond this house. And I'm really, basically, the guy said he was scared because he had been so long. You can imagine, just think about within the past year, what our world has gone through for those of us that are out here living in the world. Think about just in the past short amount of time where we are with technology. I mean, here we are having this meeting and seeing each other, and none of us are in the same room. Well, you take somebody who's been in prison for a number of years, this is totally foreign to them. They have no concept. You know, they're out looking for pay phones. Well, no phones exist anymore. No pay phones exist that I know of. Maybe there are a few somewhere in there, but you hear what I'm saying. So just helping somebody get reacclimated to society. And just let me say this, we are not the bleeding hearts of South Carolina, North Carolina. We believe if you commit a crime, you should do some form of time. We also know that there are various levels of crime that are committed. You know, we know that within our criminal justice system, and none of us likes a thief. In fact, I've often said, I'll be very candid with you, that if you gave me the choice to work beside someone who committed murder one time versus someone who was a regular thief, I'd rather work beside the person that committed murder one time, because that's a horrible thing that happens. But generally speaking, for a lot of folks, those are crimes of passion. It happens one time and it never happens again. And yet you take somebody who's been a lifelong thief, it's hard to break that. So it just depends on the different situations. But we deal with, again, all kinds of people and all those professions that I named earlier. I literally can give you names of people. I'll give you an example. There are people on this call that are familiar with something called lost trust, which was a big legislative, unfortunately, thing that happened years ago, where a number of legislators were, there was a discussion and effort made at having pari-mutuel betting in the state. And so legislators are being paid off to vote for that. And a number of them went to federal prison. We actually had to engineer at one point in time in one of our facilities, not having the snitcher and the snitchee in our facility at the same time. They had done their time in federal prison. They were coming back to a residential reentry center, to our halfway house, and transition on from there. So again, all kinds of people and all kinds of situations.
Do the prisons take on projects that help the communities, like build a little library, a blessing project, or large mailings that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. No. And again, it has to do why you don't have more people. Everybody says, why can't we have everybody out there picking up trash? Well, you can have some folks out there picking up trash, but you can't have everybody, because you gotta know that based on their behavior thus far in the prison, that the minute that you let them out to start picking up trash, they're not going to figure out a way to get away from that, and in essence escape. And so the prisons do a lot of work. They save a lot of money, tax dollars actually, because some of them grow their own crops. They do internal construction. So that, again, because of the talents of a lot of people that are in prison, they don't do a lot of outside projects that I'm aware of.
You might have just answered this in the previous question, but we have it somewhat phrased in a different way, so I'm going to ask it to you. How many reoffend and go back to prison? What's your percentage?
Well, of the folks that we deal with, it's usually about 10%. That's roughly. And again, those are folks that are in intensive programs. Now, if somebody walks in and we have people that come to our community service coordinators, they might have just gotten out of prison. That might be one of those people that there was no follow-up that was required based on their sentence. We actually have people, believe it or not, and I don't think they should have the option to do this personally, but that have the option to serve all of their time. They may be eligible for parole. They may be eligible to get on out and be on some kind of work release situation, but they sometimes prefer to stay in a little bit longer so that when they get out, they don't report to anybody for anything. My personal opinion is that everybody who comes out of prison should have some kind of follow-up with somebody, whether it's state probation and parole, whether it's with federal system, whatever it might be. The federal system is different from the state system in that the federal system does require follow-up once they get out. States, and not just our state system, but state systems nationwide don't require follow-up all the time, again, based on the sentence. So not everybody's on probation or parole.
Understood. I will say, Anne, PDG Sandy Brooks has some information about 2 in the Columbia area. If you want to reach out to her, she has more information for you. That would be prisons that have formed a Rotaract club.
We had them at my district conference in 2016-17.
Okay, all right. And is this in addition to the Department of Juvenile Justice, Sandy, or do you know?
This is one of them is the same one that Joel was talking about.
Right, okay, all right, thank you.
Not sure if you have an answer to this question, and that's okay if you don't. Have they followed the Rotaract members who left the prison?
Say that again. Have what?
Have they followed the Rotaract members who left the prison? Sandy put her hands up, so maybe we don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any of that. Sandy might be. I'm not aware.
Okay.
When you're saying Rotaract, are you saying Rotaract members who have volunteered in the prison through Rotaract? Have we followed them once they're no longer doing that, or followed the people that they're working with?
Prisoners have formed a Rotaract. There's a Rotaract club inside the prison of prisoners who are given privileges if they do certain things.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And they're youth. They're not adults.
Okay. So I think that may be the same one that Joel's talking about. Okay.
Gotcha. Maybe you guys could all get together and you got a lot of maybe information there that can help a lot of people out. Let's see here. Is drugs still the leading cause of folks going to prison?
Drugs, it's any kind of drug, alcohol, drugs. It's also, there are people that commit crimes that don't have any kind of drug problems. Their murders are committed that don't, I mean, it's a variety of, there are a variety of reasons that people go to prison. I would say that probably the majority of people that are in prison have some kind of addiction issue. It might be alcohol, it might be drugs, there are other addictions besides alcohol and drugs. A lot of folks with mental health issues that get out of, I remember years ago being in our office, and this was many years ago, and there was literally a guy outside of our office that we became aware of, he was literally beating his head against a telephone pole. And we went out to see what we could do to help. To make a long story short, we connected him with mental health, etc. But you all know people that have never served time, maybe need to, and not so much time. We have taken mental health issues in our nation and turned them into criminal justice issues. And again, I'm not a bleeding heart, but if somebody has an emotional issue based on Lord knows what, I mean, there are all kinds of reasons that folks have emotional issues, rather than being dealt with at that level, then they end up committing some kind of crime and they end up in prison. As most of you know, in fact, there's a recent book out about the state hospital on Bull Street in Columbia. I happened to go to school with the daughter of William S. Hall, who that's the William S. Hall Institute's named after. And we used to have that, not only in South Carolina, but we had it throughout the nation. And there were good and bad things about having these state hospitals. However, they don't exist anymore. And so we have people that they need help as it relates to mental health, but they end up actually being in prison instead.
Do the participants come to your programs voluntarily, or is this a condition of their release?
Again, it depends on the program. If they're coming from federal prison, they're coming to us. All of the referrals that we get come directly from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So you can't just walk up to one of our facilities and say, I've just gotten out of federal prison, I need a place to stay. Can I come stay at your, quote, halfway house or your residential reentry center? So everything that we do with our federal folks, again, that's under contract. But we follow through with other programs. In other words, when folks get ready to leave us, I'll give you an example. I was talking with someone yesterday with Palmetto Project. I happen to be on that board, and they do a variety of things. And one of the things that they've been doing is helping people. They run the only nonprofit insurance company in the state of South Carolina. And in addition to helping folks with Medicaid, Medicare, that kind of thing, they're actually helping folks with getting on unemployment, etc. But I was talking to someone from there yesterday, and they were telling me about what a great job that our facility in Florence was doing so far as connecting our folks who were preparing to be released to find out what services they could provide them. So it's a continuum of care, and the people that come to us through the federal prison, again, that's straight referral. If they come to us from the state system, it's self-referral. They'll walk in the door, they write us letters. Our folks that are part of our community service coordinators, and that's basically that group, that fourth program I talked about, that they go into the state prisons too. So people find out about us in the state prisons, and we work very closely with all the criminal justice agencies. We're all members of the American Correctional Association, the American Probation and Parole Association. There are various associations that we're all involved with and work together with collectively. I happen to be on the board of governors for the American Correctional Association, and so I'm very aware of what's happening nationwide too in the criminal justice system. As far as the veterans, they will walk in the door. So far as them coming to us, they can walk in the door and ask for services. So far as housing referrals, those they can either walk in the door, but then we have to connect them with the Veterans Administration, and we have to make sure that they indeed are veterans. I hate to tell you this, but there are unfortunately some folks walking around in our state, in our cities, in our nation that have the baseball caps that say they're Vietnam vets or whatever it might be, and they've never served one day in the military. And I hate to say that happens, but it does. So we have to confirm through the Veterans Administration that indeed the people who say they're veterans are veterans. So we are under constant audit by everybody that we contract with. I can't tell you how many audits we go through in a year's time, and they don't pick on us. We're like everybody else. If you have these contracts and you're serving a certain group of people through the Bureau of Prisons or through the Veterans Administration or whatever it might be, the Department of Social Services, we have to have a lot, not only be licensed with them, but we have audits that are done, program audits as well as facility audits, and the list goes on and on. So, and we are accredited by the Council on Accreditation, which you have to be in order to provide the youth services. And we're also accredited by the, our 4 residential reentry centers are accredited by the American Correctional Association.
All right, and I've got 2 final questions for you here today.
Okay.
Do you have organizations or companies that will provide jobs?
Yes, we do. And we have a lot of companies that provide jobs. I'll tell you, they particularly like to provide jobs to our veterans, and they particularly like to provide jobs to the folks that are in our residential reentry centers, because they know that they're going to be there every day. They're going to show up and they want to work. Because the people that are in all of our halfway houses, and I'll use that term since that's what people are more familiar with, they have to be employed. They have to be employed within 14 days from the time they get to us. And so we have to move in, and we have people on our staff. That's all they do is they're helping these folks get employment. So yes, we have a lot of folks around the state, as well as in North Carolina, that are willing to hire the people that we deal with. And one thing I do want to say about the criminal justice system, Donald, is that a lot of people don't realize the impact that one crime has on a family. And I'll just give you an example. In 2002, I got home one night about 9 o'clock, got out of my car, and I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. And I saw a guy running down the driveway at me. I thought he needed some help initially, until I realized what his plan was to rob me. Now, he didn't succeed in robbing me. However, many of you know that I'm on a scooter. I'm not on the scooter just so that I can get around to people faster. I'm on it because my right ankle got messed up to the extent that I had to get on the scooter in 2012. Now, when people hear about a crime, they think about the person that committed the crime, and they think about the person the crime got committed against. Well, let me tell you who else becomes a victim. My husband, who was alive at the time, he became a victim the same time I did. Because even though I've been in every prison in South Carolina, I had never been directly involved in being a victim of any crime. I will tell you, I did not want to stay in our house if my husband wasn't here at the time. And so when he got up and left at 6:30 in the morning, you would find me leaving at 6:30 in the morning, which I did not have to leave at that time. And I'd go park at the local Hardee's and put on my makeup, etc., or whatever it might be, and then get on to Columbia. I live in Sumter, work out of Columbia. My husband became a victim of that crime too. The family members, if you find out that you have a family member tonight that goes out and there's a drunk driving situation and they get arrested for driving drunk, or that worse yet, there's an accident, somebody gets killed, the family members of the people who commit the crime, they become victims too. Because as you well know, I have a daughter who's 47 years old. I am not in charge of my daughter. She's a great person, but at 47, she makes her own decisions. And so you have to be aware that this criminal justice system impacts a lot of people, just like the situation with veterans. A veteran comes back and they're dealing with a lot of emotional stuff from war, etc. You can bet their family members they're very much a part of that whole process that's going on. So there are a lot of victims, unfortunately, in life, and not just the obvious ones.
Thank you. The last question is a comment along with a question at the end of it. I enjoy teaching in the state prisons, but between the lockdown for the Lee prison riot and COVID, getting in with this is but impossible currently. Do you anticipate this may open up soon for people to go and present in prisons?
I think until there's some kind of a better control with these COVID numbers in the state of South Carolina, I think things will continue just like they are. And our folks have not been able to get in either. And so people that have been going to the state prisons and providing services. So it's really been a lockdown situation, so to speak. And I mean, you can well imagine, you talk about social distancing, figure that out in a prison. I mean, we run the halfway houses. We've had a difficult time. I mean, it's hard to do social distancing when you have what we call congregate housing.
Well, thank you very much, Anne, for taking time and sharing a lot of knowledge with us this morning. Very, very informative. Appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did want to go over the next two speakers because we know we do this 3 times a week. Mondays at 11, Wednesdays for the all club call at noon, Fridays at 11. This coming Wednesday, we're going to be joined by Ron Pierce, who is in a Rotary Club in North Carolina. He's going to be sharing with us his thinking outside the box strategies for building membership. So if you are the membership chair in your club, great. We want you there on Wednesday. If you're not, we want you to make sure your membership chair is on that call. Wednesday at noon, there would be an email going out Wednesday morning about the information, but Wednesday at noon, we want you there. And then on Friday, John Nanny, who is a polio survivor. We're talking about kind of the polio and how then and now. I had the pleasure of meeting John at Gary Bradham's district conference in Myrtle Beach. So we're looking forward to having John with us on Friday. To conclude today, I will do the Rotary 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Hope everyone has a wonderful Monday. Stay cool, stay hydrated, enjoy your day. See you on Wednesday. That's a wrap for Conversations with Rotary Action People for Monday, July 20th. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.